So if I don't come to Christ, am I going to hell?
I don't know. I don't want to say that to anybody. Actually, there are times when I will share my faith if somebody wants to hear about it. If somebody doesn't want to hear about it, it's cool.
Most people don't want to hear about it.
Then that's cool. Then I just love on them. I don't want to force anything upon anybody.
It's been said that 95% of Christians are afraid to share the gospel or having at some point stand firm in their faith. So why do you think the gospel has such a paralyzing effect on people? Like
The gospel being paralyzing.
why?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be the greatest news,
Supposed to be a
right?
motivator.
Fear of confrontation, obviously. Fear of rejection. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of losing relationships. Fear of failure, being unequipped, not representing Christ well. Fear of the unknown. Anxiety about what may or may not happen.
Yeah. And fear is a steering wheel.
These are steering wheels.
Right.
Yeah, and so,
So how would you define that? You know, when like we've talked about that before.
fear being a steering wheel.
Fear being a steering wheel. Like, what are your like just initial thoughts? You hear that list. Of course, that's connected to that.
Mm-hmm.
It's driving, right?
Yeah. Well, okay, let's look at those for a moment, right? So confrontation. In terms of a steering wheel, it's going to steer maybe the way I approach someone or what I might say to them out of fear of confrontation. I don't want the confrontation to happen. I don't want to be confrontational. Maybe my personality is just, I'm not a very confrontational person, because that's really common too.
Right.
Where that
Not many people enjoy confrontation.
No, I would venture to say most don't. You're
Right.
kind of weirdo if you like really,
Yeah.
like you just run
Want
into
just
it.
want beef with everybody.
Oh yeah, you just want yeah. So I think we all would say, for the most part, confrontation is something that we would want to avoid, and so that's where it becomes a steering wheel. And if you know that you're talking about a very hot button topic with someone, you're dealing with like one that's going to strike a chord, and you can think about it, especially like in very close relationships, like familial relationships within the family structure, siblings, parents, and then you can think even one more step closer to intimacy is your husband or your wife, right? Where you're going to have to press a hot button, and you know that this is going to be confrontational, but you have to say it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the sin of not doing so would be cowardice.
Well, coward, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so like
cowardice, yeah.
fear of rejection, same idea. If I say this to this person, I don't want them to not want to spend time with me anymore,
Right.
you know, or I would like to really be a part of this social group, so that I'm concerned about if I jump in there and say these things, they might not accept me anymore. I mean, you can think about like kids are especially prone to this. You know, I have mostly teenagers now, four teenage boys. And that's something that is a regular part of my conversation. Hey, you know, I always tell them, like, do the right thing. You know, if your friends are being dumb, be willing to confront them, say it. And what 9 times out of 10, what are they going to come back with? Oh, Dad, like, this is a really important social group in my school, or maybe a part of a sports program that I'm a part of, and I don't want to be rejected and ousted by them.
Right.
And so kids are more like very prone, especially, you know, I would say probably from the ages, this is especially true in like middle school, where those social structures become even more and more important into high school,
Oh yeah.
right? And then we can also say that this is true like in the workplace. Like you want to, opportunities are presented in part by being part of social groups, connected to social groups that present those opportunities. So if you're like confronting, for example, the hiring manager or the guy who might be in charge or the gal who might be in charge of promotions in the workplace, last thing you want to do is spin them out.
Yeah. Fear of rejection. That's
Big one. As a matter of fact,
rough.
I think in the polls, I researched a Barna poll. Fear of rejection is like at the top.
right.
Yeah, there's a Barna study.
When you
on
think
it.
about sharing the gospel, it's like we don't need to fear any sort of rejection. Why? Because we're not trying to close the deal.
I think that fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown, those fears are real. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to go, hey guys, like we have it all figured out, because we suffer. I'll say personally, and I don't want to speak for Greg, but I personally, even though I've done it a ton, I've done a lot of public speaking now, but I was terrified of those things. And there's still an element of fear every time I have to engage in a conversation where I know like this, whether it's actually sharing the gospel or standing in the faith. And there's a reason why I separate those two things. But I want you to know, like, there are very real practical ways, you're already starting to dive into that can help you overcome those things. And I'm talking about people who might be like totally crippled. You can move from being totally crippled to boldly standing firm, right? And the one thing I wanted to bring up as I was doing the research and reading through this, it kept coming up, this idea of sharing the faith, or sharing your religion, or sharing spiritual things. That kept coming up over and over again. Like somehow that is distinct from anything else we do.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Like waiting for like a particular opportunity to start talking about something that's
No.
like other kind of thing? Or?
No, like somehow matters of faith, matters of spirituality, matters of religion are distinctly different from everything else in life.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Yeah,
But they're not, though.
but they're not.
I think that's part of the problem.
Everybody's religious.
Exactly right. Everyone's religious.